All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are unpacking the completely fascinating, wonderfully chaotic, and just fiercely imaginative world of an indie literary epic called Dreamweaver Book 5, Decay. This is written by Edwin Wentome Bozie, and let me tell you, this text is a wild, unfiltered journey that absolutely refuses to play by traditional genre rules. We're talking about a story where you'll be reading a genuinely profound theological debate about the nature of the soul on one page, and then, literally on the next page, you're thrown headfirst into an over-the-top, screaming anime battle. Oh, and did I mention the author himself frequently pauses the entire narrative just to yell at his own characters? Yeah, that happens. A lot. If you're someone who appreciates outsider art, that raw, passionate kind of storytelling that boldly defies conventions, you're going to find this deep dive incredibly rewarding. So let's take our time with this explainer and really explore what makes this universe so uniquely captivating.
Now, just take a look at the sheer ambition of this elemental aesthetic we're dealing with. We've got nightmares and dream nights clashing in what is quite literally a cosmic war. The visual scale implied here, the roaring flames, the crashing water, that looming shadowy figure in the background, it perfectly mirrors the staggering scope of the narrative itself. Because you see, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill fantasy story. It's a massive, universe-spanning conflict between the human world and the realm of dreams. And the elements of fire, water, and light, they aren't just your standard magic spells in this universe. No, they are fundamental, terrifying forces tied directly to the very souls and the ultimate destinies of our main characters. It is epic in the truest sense of the word.
Because this source material is so delightfully chaotic, we need a game plan. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll do a quick welcome to the Dreamverse. Second, we'll look at humans versus forces. Third, we'll unpack the philosophy of decay. Fourth, we'll dive into theology and anime tropes. And finally, my absolute favorite part, breaking the fourth wall.
Okay, part 1. Welcome to the Dreamverse. Let's get the lay of the land and establish our setting.
Meet our core cast of characters. We've got Zan, Ayumi, Ai, and the Nightmare King. Their lives, and honestly their high-stakes destinies, are completely inextricably linked across both the realm of dreams and the human world. On one side, we have Zan. He is secretly Zan Nightbane, born to the terrifying Nightmare King and the radiant Princess of Dreams. Talk about a complicated family tree, right? He carries this impossible weight of a cosmic prophecy on his shoulders, destined to either save humanity or bring about its absolute ultimate end. Then, on the other side, we have these fierce, unyielding dream knights like Ayumi and Ai Kurosawa. These two wield devastating elemental powers like pyrogeysers and oceanic blades. The text wastes no time. It throws us right into the deep end of their intertwined lives, where family legacies, hidden curses, and forced arranged marriages crash headfirst into an apocalyptic supernatural war.
But to truly grasp this text, you absolutely have to appreciate the sheer, unapologetic variety of cultural and literary elements mashed together here. The author fearlessly throws all of these ingredients into a single, cohesive narrative stew. For example, in one chapter, characters might casually go to the cinema to watch a parody film about Kalele. Now, Kalele is a real figure from Ghanaian folklore, but here, he's reimagined as a guy who secretly helped biblical figures like Noah and David behind the scenes. It's brilliant! And then, in the very next chapter, those same characters are engaging in classic anime tropes, screaming out their hyperspecific attack names and showing off classic tsundere or yandere personality traits. It's this completely unrestricted, gleeful blending of global cultures and internet-era storytelling conventions.
Moving on to part 2, humans versus forces. Let's figure out the fundamental rules that govern the Dreamverse.
So the prologue cleanly breaks down the core mechanic of this universe, and it's built on a really fascinating dichotomy. On one side, we have forces. These are immensely powerful beings, nightmares, dream knights, celestials, but they are bound in literal chains of obedience to the gods. Their entire existence is rigidly defined by divine whim. They simply must obey. On the other side, we have humans. Humans are physically weaker, entirely fragile, but they are fiercely independent. Humans possess something entirely unique in this cosmos, the capacity to defy divine will. This specific dynamic sets the stage for the overarching conflict of the whole series. You have these cosmic entities constantly trying to manipulate or just straight up eradicate humanity. Why? Simply because human unpredictability,
our free will, is a profound threat to their perfect, rigid order.
And that brings us to this crucial quote. At least humans have a choice. The central takeaway here is surprisingly profound. In a universe filled to the brim with terrifying magical powers and elemental gods, the simple human ability to make a choice is the most potent magic of all. In the text, there's a mysterious entity who actually taunts the Dreamweaver with this very fact. He points out that his epic, heroic destiny to defeat the dark god Xanfar was forced upon him before he was even born. He didn't ask for it. Yet the overarching theme of the story insists that because the Dreamweaver has human blood and a human soul, he retains the freedom to choose his own path. It's a really moving, thoughtful meditation on free will, just wrapped up in a cosmic fantasy wrapper.
Let's pivot to part 3, the philosophy of decay. This unpacks the title of the book itself.
Okay, picture this. You're right in the middle of a massive life-or-death battle. The terrifying Nightmare King is facing down Ayumi. But instead of attacking, he completely stops fighting. Why? Just to deliver a profound philosophical lecture. Seriously. He explains that the concept of decay, which is in the title of the book, isn't about physical rotting. It's a spiritual failure. It's the ultimate enemy of conscience. It happens to both humans and supernatural forces when they defy their natural moral laws. When you sacrifice your true beliefs, or when you compromise your conscience just to please somebody else, or even just to mask your own internal pain, a deep-seated grudge is born within you. This inner rot, this suppression of your authentic self, that is what the author defines as true decay.
And the author actually maps this out as a highly structured step-by-step pipeline to spiritual ruin. It's almost psychological. First, internal decay causes instability, which manifests outwardly as chaos. Now, chaos, which the text brilliantly personifies as a literal entity that feeds on internal turmoil, eventually exhausts the soul. And this soul exhaustion leads directly to step 3, sloth. But wait, sloth here isn't just being lazy on the couch. It's way worse. It's defined as a total apathy towards goodness. It's a false sense of security and the tragic state of unforgiveness. Once a character reaches that level of sloth, ultimate destruction is absolutely guaranteed.
Following that philosophical thread, we get this genuinely fascinating moment where the text perfectly synthesizes empirical science with spiritual faith. I mean, you don't usually expect hard physics in a magical fantasy epic, right? In a deeply poignant scene, a character named Saito is grieving her impending death, and she's questioning if there's even an afterlife. A mysterious priest counters her doubts, but not with religious dogma. He uses science. He brings up the law of conservation of energy. He argues that if energy can never be destroyed, only transformed, then human consciousness and memories, which he frames as a literal form of energetic output, must also continue to exist in a renewed state after the physical vessel fails. It's such a clever, comforting way to blend logic with the metaphysical.
Now, for part 4, theology and anime tropes. This is where the stylistic mashups get really wild. In what is probably the most brilliant stylistic choice in the entire book, characters weaponize literal Bible verses from John and Solomon, but they call them out like high-powered anime attack sequences. Early in the story, the Princess of Dreams is cornered by the ultimate evil, Xanfar. To defend her infant son, she doesn't cast a generic magical barrier. Instead, she initiates what she calls a chain of fatal verses. She literally shouts out, Phase 1, Act of Faith, and recites John 1:1. And she immediately follows that up by screaming, Phase 2, initiating the ultimate shield, while reciting Proverbs 18:10. It is an incredibly unique, hyper-creative way to frame real-world scripture. It treats biblical verses with the exact same dramatic, high-octane energy as a devastating magical incantation. And right alongside those solemn biblical incantations, you have characters screaming out completely absurd, over-the-top anime combat dialogue. So you'll have those deep philosophical debates about the nature of the soul happening on one page, and literally on the very next page, you've got Dreamdites leaping through the air, executing pro-wrestling grapple holds, and yelling out attacks like, Ultimate Holy Submission Sucker Punch to Gozaru. The author's utterly unafraid to let these two drastically different tones coexist side by side. It creates this reading experience where you are constantly kept on your toes. You're shifting rapidly from profound metaphysical dread straight into laugh-out-loud slapstick action. The text constantly juxtaposes this epic, high-stakes dialogue with incredibly grounded comedy. Imagine this. During the brutal, grueling 3-day battle at Blackwater Bridge, the terrifying Nightmare King finally corners his enemy. But instead of delivering your standard menacing villain monologue about conquering the world, he starts explaining, step by step, the traditional African method for preparing chicken soup. I'm serious. He slowly, deliberately talks about plucking the feathers, carefully removing the innards, adding the perfect amount of soy sauce and cranberries, before casually informing his opponent that he plans to use her as the main ingredient. It is a bizarre,
deeply unsettling yet undeniably hilarious power move to establish dominance. Finally, Part 5, Breaking the Fourth Wall. Let's look at the author as an actual character. Okay, to set this up, we frequently get standard, intense fantasy dialogue that sets a very serious scene. For instance, you have the Nightmare King standing tall amidst a ruined battlefield. He is delivering a powerful, booming declaration about royalty and sacrifice. In a deep, epic voice, he proclaims, "I am their king, and it is the duty of the king to protect his citizens." It is exactly the kind of weighty, dramatic dialogue you expect from a high fantasy epic.
Which is immediately interrupted by the author literally yelling in all caps. Actually, scratch that. He doesn't just interrupt. The author, Edwin, physically forces his way into the text. Right in the middle of the Nightmare King's terrifying monologue about making chicken soup out of a teenage girl, Edwin types in all capital letters, "Hear her! No one asked for a cooking lesson! Don't you even think about cooking my future GF!" And the best part? The characters actually pause what they're doing to argue back with the author, questioning his subjective opinions on soup ingredients. It completely shatters the fourth wall into a million pieces. It is just wonderfully, delightfully chaotic.
The author doesn't just pull strings from the shadows. He is a loud, chaotic, and highly stressed out participant in his own universe. He actively interrupts the narrative to point out flaws, critique cliches, and share his raw, unfiltered passion directly with us, the readers. When his protagonist, Zan, is about to make a foolish, cliché romantic mistake, the author literally types out warnings, begging him to stop, referencing other stories where characters got slapped for doing the exact same thing. And when he gets frustrated with the complex lore that he himself created, he literally threatens to destroy the entire world and just start writing Book 7 instead. It's a level of meta-commentary that makes the creator an essential, highly entertaining character in his own right.
So to wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this. Does the chaotic, ambitious, and rule-breaking nature of this universe actually make it a purer, more fascinating piece of art? Dreamweaver Book 5 clearly doesn't care about standard pacing, genre consistency, or traditional formatting. What it cares about is expressing its ideas. Whether that is a profound Christian theology of love, a psychological breakdown of spiritual decay, or just a really cool flaming sword attack, with absolute, unbridled enthusiasm. It really leaves us wondering, is there an inherent beauty in just throwing out the rulebook and writing purely from the heart? What do you think? I hope this deep dive gave you something to chew on. Thanks for joining me on this wild ride.